Samy tam dużego kebaba, ja miałem średni kebab, to wiesz.
The 21 Convention, 2019, the European edition here in Warsaw, Poland. For the past 4 days, you've been inspired, moved, challenged. We've broken bread together. We clinked wine glasses. We toasted each other. Some people made new commitments to be stronger, more decisive, all because of what you heard and experienced here. I heard conversations in the hallways with renewed commitments to business, to personal life, intergender relationships, fitness. I've heard your conversations, and I was part of some of them. I am privileged to be able to bring on stage the founder and CEO of the 21 Convention and his final address. Someone who has inspired me. Put your hands together for Anthony Dream Johnson.
Thank you, George, for everything. How's it going, boys? Can I get a fuck yeah?
Fuck yeah!
All right, fuck yeah. Title of my presentation today, closing address, and my main presentation at the event, my only one, the Manosphere. It's going to take two journeys or two paths during this presentation. One will be personal, one man's journey, which would be my own. You're going to have your own personal journey as well that I think you can relate to. Like you, I'm a man who found the Manosphere. Maybe you found the Red Pill community, maybe you found the POA community, maybe you found it through the men's rights, all that. We'll get into these little tribes in a second. But it's my personal perspective we'll look at it, as well as a kind of global view, a bird's eye view of the entire movement that we're seeing emerge. So this is the Manosphere, for those of you who are not aware of the 4 distinct tribes that occupy it, as well as the white, which we'll get into in a second. So some people view the Manosphere as just the pickup artist community, which is the oldest tribe within it. It's not. It's got 4 distinct ones at this point. The first one that you might be, most people are familiar with through the game, the VH1 TV show, and the notoriety it's gotten over the years, and decades at this point, over 25 years of history, is the seduction/POA community. We do call it these days the pickup artist community, but really it was known initially and originally as the seduction community. Guys who are more old school would still, I think, call it that. Guys like Ross Jeffries, Alan Roger Curry, Hypnotica, men like that. All speakers at our event. Of course, you have MGTOW, men going their own way. I'm not as familiar with that one, but it is a distinct tribe. It's got a couple 100,000 guys in it. There are YouTube channels, Reddit communities, different websites, and all that. And it is distinct. It is distinct from pickup artists. It is distinct from the Red Pill community and men's rights. So I just mentioned there's another community that is mostly known on Reddit. They've been quarantined like other communities lately, about a year ago at this point, I think. That's the Red Pill at reddit.com/r/theredpill. This one I actually found years ago in like 2013 because I liked a lot of our speeches from the pickup artists and dating coaches, but I didn't really understand what the hell I was looking at. I found this little subreddit, bunch of dudes, like 80,000 or whatever the fuck it was at that point. I was like, oh, some group of dudes likes our content. I did not yet recognize it as a distinct tribe in the Manosphere, but it is. It's ended, when they got quarantined, they had about 300,000 guys involved with it, and it was even a little bit bigger than that. So it's also a distinct community and tribe, or sub-tribe, within the larger Manosphere. The last one that's also pretty old is the men's rights activists or activism. I believe they kind of got started in the 1990s. On Reddit, their main community, they also have 300,000, something like that, subscribers, members. And they're also known through guys like Paul Elam and different content creators and leaders in their space. These are the 4 main ones that in totality make up the bulk of the Manosphere. But there's more than that in the white space. That would be guys like Stefan Molyneux, who we recently interviewed at our Patriarch Edition, Fatherhood Edition convention in Florida. Guys like Dr. Jordan Peterson, guys like Milo Yiannopoulos, content creators that are familiar with this space, but they're not involved with it on a day-to-day basis. But they contribute content to men that helps men around the world. So in totality, between the guys in the periphery, the auxiliary, and these 4 sub-communities, you have an emerging movement that looks like this. This is kind of a little meme that one of our fans made. I find it pretty interesting. So from tail to the head, obviously this comes from the American Revolution, a couple hundred years ago. You have JBP Lobsters, the Jordan Peterson fans. You have pickup artists, you have MGTOW, you have the Tradcons, that's a new emerging. I think it was Richard Grandin talking about that recently here, and other speakers as well. You have the Men's Rights, the Red Pill, you have the Red Man Group, you have 21Con, and it's a join or die kind of attitude. And while this is for now just a meme and it's funny, I think in the coming years it might not be quite so funny. As we've seen, and as Richard Grandin, for example, stated, you cannot overstate the seriousness of the culture war and the gender war and what we're seeing with feminism and feminists attacking men and fathers and masculinity. It's getting more serious every year, not just in America, but around the world. So defining the manosphere a little bit further beyond the sub-tribes and the other operators and content creators within it, it's an emerging men's movement. It's been going on for about 2.5 decades, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how you view the origin of it. The internet obviously was a huge facilitator of that in the 1990s. I actually found one of the original communities, that was my entry point to the manosphere, which was alt-fast seduction. I found it in 2005 when I was 17 years old. I was scared shitless to go to a homecoming dance my senior year. So like many of you probably, I went to Google. I typed in like how to dance at a club or some shit. And before I knew it, I found the seduction community, therefore the manosphere, and here I am 13-something years later. Yeah, wild fucking trip. It is a worldwide community of men. It is not just local to the United States or Canada or Australia or the United Kingdom or Europe. It is all over the world. Our content at 21 Studios and our speakers, it's viewed daily by basically every country on the planet. It consists in total, the manosphere, millions and millions of men. And it's getting bigger with guys like Stefan Molyneux, at our event, getting involved, watching it, observing it. And now Elliot Hulse, who on his own has 2 million YouTube subscribers, who are almost all men and mostly young, 18, about 25 is his biggest demographic. He loves what we're doing, he's been watching it for a couple years, and he is getting more involved. These are men and content creators and leaders who have serious followings in the millions, just on their own. In total, I don't know the exact number of how big it is, but it's definitely in the millions, possibly over 10 million at this point, of men actively interested and engaged and aware of what's going on, excluding the pickup community's involvement with mainstream media through the Book of the Game and VH1, things like that. People that are aware of those things are not quite as involved usually on a day-to-day basis, so for now I'm excluding them. It is also a masculine community. Undeniably, some women get involved, they have interest in different communities, things like that. I'm very critical of it, not a fan. But for example, in the pickup artist community, there's like female dating coaches and shit. So women are involved, but by far and large, it's men, and it's a very masculine community, even in spite of that shit. Particularly in the Red Pill and the MGTOW communities. There's like no woman involved in these things. And it is fucking masculine, explicitly. It is also online and offline. So we're talking about these websites, these YouTube channels, these Reddit communities and stuff, but it's also in real life. It is flesh and blood. You guys here at this event are an example of that. This event itself, the 21 Convention, is the longest running, largest, and most powerful conference in the history of the Manosphere. This particular event's not huge in Europe, but we've had events with over 200 men, and we've done 17 now after the conclusion at this event. So we've done a whole bunch of them, way more than anyone else, and there's other groups too. For example, there's workshops done all the time. That's notorious in the pickup community, especially the companies like Mystery Method and Real Social Dynamics. But even nowadays, there's like the Cobra Tate War Room meetups they have. There's the Ed Lattimore, Tanner Guzzi, and AJ Cortez workshop doing later this year. And there's emerging movements now, or not just movements, but meetup groups. The pickup artist community was the most notorious for this. That's how I met Socrates and many speakers back in the day in Florida. We had a pickup artist layer, which is like the worst fucking name in history for a meetup group for men, but nevertheless, that's what it was called in the pickup artist community. And I met a lot of men through that are friends to this day. And in spite of the creepy-ass weird name, that was a really good system that was worldwide. Florida had a particularly good one. There's a good one in London I heard about that I met a few of the guys at. I think Nick Krause is probably familiar with them. And you're seeing that reemerge today. Surprise, history is repeating itself. The point of this is the Manosphere is both online, digital, and offline analog. And it runs through events like this, as well as meetup groups and workshops and things like that. Both are extremely important. But I think the most important element of the Manosphere as an emerging men's movement is that for the first time in history, to my knowledge, men are organizing at this scale, in the millions, at this scale and intensity for the interests of all men and now fathers. This is a unique characteristic that we have not seen before. Previously, like Jack Donovan was talking about, there's been fraternal organizations of men, but they were usually local, or they were like religious-based or something more specific. And of course, they didn't have the internet if they were older than 20, 30 years. So we're seeing a unique combination of emerging factors and men and millions of men getting involved with each other for the interests of men. You're coming usually on a personal basis. You have a problem in your life, maybe you suck with women, you want to get better. Maybe you're married and your marriage is a fucking shit show. Maybe you want to be a better father. Maybe you just got divorce raped and you found the men's rights community instead of the pickup artist community. Whatever the case may be, you're finding the Manosphere, and you come with personal interest to self-improve or fix something or improve some part of your life, but then you stay. There's actually a saying in the Red Pill community that I found when I first found it back in 2016 that was kind of funny, coming from the pickup artist angle. And it's, I came for the pussy and I stayed to save the West. This is a sentiment that many men, I hear some laughs in the audience, can relate to. Because you stay and you want to improve, and then you do. If you apply yourself and you're not a fucking pussy. But then you meet other men, you find brotherhood and camaraderie, and you stay, and you start to realize that, there's 50 men in this room or whatever, there's thousands and millions of men all over the world just like you. Not just like other men with the same problems, which is interesting, but men just like you who are also involved looking at the same content. Last year alone, 21 Studios did over 10 million views around the world with our videos. If you look at our speaker network on top of that, our own original content, it's over 100 million. This is serious. So it starts with you, and it ends with your entire half of the human race, with positive spillover to women incoming, right fucking here on my head. That'll be coming spring 2020. AJ Cortez, I've tapped his keynote and he's accepted. We're gonna have an entire conference, the mansplaining event of the century, all male speakers for women in Orlando, Florida, spring 2020. Some people might call me, I'm sure they will, and I'll gladly accept it. They'll call me like Admiral, Sabaho or something like that. I don't give a fuck. I think it's very natural that men eventually want to help women at scale in a way that works. Women have dug themselves into a feminist shithole that they're not going to dig themselves out of. Whatever wisdom that women used to pass down through generations into their children and their sisters and so on, that's stopped. Almost completely at this point. We have to help them get out of that fucking shithole and make them better, make women great again. I think it's time, and it's very natural, this is bound to happen. And it's going to happen spring 2020 in Orlando, Florida. Tickets are not on sale yet, but if you have a girlfriend or wife you want to train up, that's where you send her. We'll put a pink button on the website. Fuck yeah. And if you get a ticket at 21, she can go to that event half off. So there you go. I think it's also important to note that as the Manosphere, I think, is from a psychological perspective with boundaries like Grandin was talking about at this conference. The Manosphere is a response to feminism, particularly the pickup artist community at the beginning, like Krauser was talking about. But men are under attack. And the Manosphere, I think, is at a huge scale in the millions of men. We're creating new boundaries, we're taking new actions and developing new ideas. In my case, for example, a very specific case that I cooked up just by being a young man in the Manosphere, I wanted to get married and build a family in my 20s. That ended up being a huge shit show, as you guys have seen with Marrying Medusa on YouTube probably. Nevertheless, the functional, practical idea I had for doing that, I made up on my own just by looking at the pickup artist community and then looking at the men's rights community. They convinced me through that A, there's a serious problem with marriage, especially in a legal sense. And this seemed to not have anything to do with the woman involved. So I could have the best woman in the world, and marriage is still contractual fucking business contract retard shit show. So I was like, I am never going to get legally married, but what am I gonna do? Well, I had the idea, I was like, well, if it's not illegal, and I looked into it, it's fine, I could just have a wedding, have her take my last name, trade rings and vows and go on a honeymoon, bring our families out, and then say, fuck the government, which is exactly what I did. And men find this fascinating. And I think this is a good specific example of a new idea that a lot of men have been interested in, and that many women today will understand if they're in your frame and they're really, really into you and you want to go down that pathway. Men get fucked over systematically in divorce court and family court all the time. You guys probably have friends that have been through that. I know I do. But there's many other ideas and applications and things going on like that. That's just one. It's also, the Manosphere is men putting ourselves first at a proper and rational point in history. The war on men is real. The war on women is nonsensical bullshit. It's projection. Grandin was talking about that really well. They hate the opposite sex. That's why they fucking vomited at you all the time, to shut you the fuck up and keep the oppression and the hatred going, which is getting worse and worse and worse, and it has to fucking stop. Not to stop, we have to push back in a useful way, which would probably not be like putting, they put pink pussy hats on their head, so I don't want to put a dick hat on my head. I don't know about you guys. I'm gonna fucking pass on that. We need to do like useful shit though, which this conference I think is a good example of. And you taking action in your personal life to get off your ass and fly to a conference and do something, or build a business or whatever you're gonna do. I mean, this is what I've done literally my entire life. I want to take a quick point here and say that the manosphere is just a word. It's a combination of letters. Some people make fun of it, and honestly, it's kind of a goofy name. It's not as bad as Lair, which is like horrible, but it's like the manosphere. Someone called it like a gay nightclub or something the other day. That doesn't matter. The concept in the community is what matters. And as of, for right now, no one has a better name for it. So the manosphere is the manosphere, and you need to watch out for anyone who's attacking the name, which I think is a covert or indirect attack on the community, which is separate from genuine criticisms. Like Mike Cernovich, for example, who might speak at our event at some point, he just came out and covered it as press recently in Orlando. He's known to say, the manosphere is like an internet ghetto. And I don't think that's as much an attack on it as there's a criticism, because he's got a fucking point, which is fine. But if someone's attacking it, undermining it, but making fun of the name, that's a lot more suspect. So if you see that going on, keep an eye on that shit. And you need to question that person's intentions. This is another bird's eye view of the manosphere itself. I did not make this. This full credit to a guy named Deep Thoughts. That's his username on Medium. He was actually, I think he's German. He came to our conference last year in 2018. It's a really cool graphic. It is, and I'll go through a little bit what it is. I know it's hard to see. But it's a personal graphic and representation of the content creators and leaders in our space that are of personal interest to him. So it's not this like perfectly universal thing, which at some point someone should do. I'll do it, or maybe someone else can do it. But for now, it's really good. It's the best I've seen by far. So on the top left, you have Foundations, you have Rational Male, you have Jack Donovan, you have Roosh V, you have Royce, you have Black Label Logic, 21 Convention, Fraternity of Excellence, all these things, right? Obviously, I have some problems with this. I'd probably put Jack Donovan at the top, not Rational Male, but whatever. On the right, you have Return to Western Society. It's a little more generalized. He goes, I think, outside the manosphere to guys like Nassim Taleb. I love Nassim Taleb. I think he's a great author. But I don't think he's quite manosphere as you would call someone like Milo or Jordan Peterson or Stefan Molyneux. He's kind of stretching, and that's his personal interest taking place there. But you also see a lot of our speakers. You see Ivan Throne, you see Goldman Elish, you see Jack Murphy, you see Tanner Guzzi, you see AJ Cortez. These are men that are creating positive media for men on their own, as well as with us, or separate from us in some cases, if they haven't spoken yet, or whatever. So it's a very useful graphic, and it's the best I've seen in terms of content creators. And then along the bottom, you see actually just kind of honorable mentions. Other content creators that don't quite fit into his map that he created here. Guys like George Bruno, Richard Cooper, Dr. Glover, Dr. Sean Smith, Socrates, Tim Ferriss, on and on down the line. I want to switch gears a little bit and say that in 2018, this is a picture of me in my The Future is Still Masculine keynote speech I gave at the event, October 2018. And I said that masculinity built America. And I pointed to a painting of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. I mean that and stand behind that 100%. But thinking more broadly in terms of like Jack Donovan's work, masculinity didn't just build America. It built civilization. It built the world we live in. That's really fucking important, especially facing the issues we face right now, even separate from like politics. I think that the manosphere, first of all, is making the West more masculine. It's doing that in things like marriages, sex, dating, relationships. It's doing it for, look at men's rights, men navigating, like I did at a young age. I was a young millennial kid in America. I wanted to build a family, get married, but I didn't want to get fucked in the process. And I was like, if I get this fucking marriage license, I'm going to get fucked, or there's a huge chance I'll get fucked, independent of whatever she does. It's like, if this woman loves you, why would you give her a loaded gun and have her point it at your head and say, don't pull the trigger? It's just stupid. It's been stupid for a long time. So I think the manosphere is making the West, by the millions of men, more masculine across a variety and a spectrum of topics and parts of life. I think what we're seeing now with the rise of radical feminism to the point of just absolute insanity, like destroying the legal concept of innocent to proven guilty recently, we saw in America, or almost dying. A lack of masculinity, because masculinity built civilization, built the West, a lack of it will destroy the world. It'll destroy the West at least. I don't want that to happen. I'm an American, I love my country. A lot of you are European, you're Polish, whatever country you came from. You love your country, you don't want it to die. Well, a lack of masculinity will fucking kill it in a long enough time span. Just like Piero would talk to you about in Collapse. But an abundance of masculinity can and will save the world. If you want to avert disaster and avert a fucking collapse, that's your only option. Nothing less is going to do it, period. I talked to you guys about my opening speech and a little bit today in the Redman group, why I chose Warsaw, Poland. What I didn't tell you guys is that this conference, our 17th conference, was by far the hardest event and singular business challenge I've ever faced in my life. I almost called it off. 45% of registered ticket holders didn't show up to this event, which I've never seen before. Usually you have like 1 or 2 guys that buy a ticket like a year before the event and then they forget about it. So that's normal. But almost half the audience just didn't show up, which was like caused all kinds of problems and fucking issues and shit. So it was really serious shit, and there's reasons for that. But at the end of the day, I think it was fate that we landed in Warsaw and that this happened. Warsaw is a city where men fucking fight for a long fucking time. They've been through brutal, brutal shit like all the speakers, or most of them I've talked about at the conference. And it was very inspiring to me to be here and to be around that. I saw a lot of that when I was here back in March and I was touring the venues. I went to the Insurrection Museum they have nearby, where that huge uprising and they all fucking died. It was brutal and fucking beyond tragic. The Soviets fucked them over. But they still fought for what they fucking believed in. They fought to the fucking death. And you know what? They died, but the country lived. This country is now free and independent, and they're proudly fucking Polish. So it was extremely inspiring. And I don't think it was fate, or I think it was fate and not coincidence that that happened the way this did. At minimum, it's like, holy fuck, I can't believe that this just happened this way. But it was very inspiring, and I'm very glad that I picked Warsaw. And I think that is what pushed me over the edge to grab my fucking balls, nut the fuck up, pull this event off. Because in the end, we won. This event happened, it's now ending. We're here, we got the footage, we had a great fucking time, great fucking content, some of the best I've ever seen in 17 years, and 150 speakers, 17 events, and 150 speakers. It's been 13 years now. I want to also mention that looking at guys like the publisher that's publishing Jack Donovan's book now in Polish, and he also published Rational Male recently, the Manosphere is inspiring countries like Poland and the men in it to fight back preemptively. They see things, little bubbles of feminism and shit like that in their country, and they see America, and they're like, holy fuck. So they see that coming here, and they're like, no, 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 no. Boundary enforcement and creation. I think that's why they're looking to men like Jack Donovan and our speakers and all these guys to import that content. We're actually going to have them now translate a lot of our speeches into Polish. They don't want that shit to happen. They don't want an army of pink pussy hats in the fucking street bitching about rights they already fucking have or something, right? All the stupid bullshit they do. That's interesting. In America, we didn't have that. We have a tidal wave of insane feminism, and we did not have a country before us to really look at and say, holy shit, let's not have that happen. They're seeing that, and they're looking to us for leadership to do that. So I love seeing that they're importing the books, they're translating them into Polish, and the speeches now will have the same effect, I think. That's why we actually have a Polish YouTube channel now too, at youtube.com/21convention. So fuck yeah. I'm really happy that we've inspired them, and I hope they keep doing that. It's smart. Kill the monster while it's little. This is another graphic from Deep Thoughts, the attendee from 2018, the German guy. So full credit to him at Medium. This is interesting because this is like an evolution of the manosphere over time. So you see it begins with the pickup artist movement. Krauser was talking to you guys a little bit about that today on Redman Group. So pickup artist, that eventually evolved into the red pill. This isn't perfect, by the way. This is again like his own like little graphic that's making sense to him, but it's really good anyway. You should keep look at it. So you have pickup artistry that morphed into the red pill eventually, which is a much more masculine. That's why eventually I kind of got sick of the pickup artist community building the convention. It kept getting more feminized over time, and you can even see that if you look at the Reddit communities in comparison. There's a seduction Reddit with like 300,000 dudes. There's a red pill Reddit with like 300,000 dudes. The seduction one's a lot more feminized. It's a lot less savage, a lot less hardcore, a lot less masculine. I didn't like that, and I got away from it. Like, these people just, fuck them. Keep doing your pickup artist stuff, fine, but you're losing sight of like being masculine, which was becoming more important to me over time, especially with the rise of insane feminism in America throughout my lifetime. That event, she has some other things here, like he has like the red pill going into like black pill into MGTOW. I don't know if I agree with that necessarily, but whatever. What's interesting to me is the most important part is the masculine community, and then the red dot he puts right here, he says we're here. I think what we're seeing now with the Manosphere is we're seeing, and this conference and the Red Man group are a really good example of that. We're seeing the different sub-tribes and the communities in the Manosphere are starting to mesh together, and they're still distinct communities, but they're getting along, they're fighting sometimes, there's problems, right? But it's becoming a more cohesive total movement, whereas before they were isolated. Like when I found the Red Pill in 2016, or a little bit before 2016, I didn't even understand it was a distinct community in the Manosphere. In fact, sub-tribes in the Manosphere didn't even really make sense to me at that point. I was familiar with the men's rights activism and the pickup artists, but the idea that they were connected somehow in an important way was like, that was new to me, or would have been new to me at the time. But now we're seeing this come together at this conference. For example, in 2017, our 10-year anniversary, we had guys like all these speakers from the Red Pill community and the pickup artist community. We had Ross Jeffries and then all these guys, Hypnotica and like these old school seduction guys, legends out of the game. The book I read as a kid growing up that inspired the fuck out of me. Not just speaking on the 21 Convention stage, but doing it alongside a movement, the Red Pill movement, that previously there would have been no connection. And they'd just be like, yeah, go fuck yourself. They were getting along. They were doing Q&A panels together, podcasts, all these things. 2017, I think, was the beginning of these communities coming together. And I think we're going to see that continue over time. So it's interesting that the Manosphere now, at this point, 2017, 18, and 19, it's coming together. And that needs to happen. That's important. That's power, I think, compressing and accumulating over time like a compound effect. It's stacking on top of each other, and we're helping each other. This isn't a big issue I've talked about a few times. I wanted to kind of hammer in on it. And my own raging narcissism, picture of myself speaking, right? It's my 2017 keynote with Socrates, The Future is Masculine. So I went over anti-feminism, so combating feminism, this negative piece of shit movement, and being pro-masculinity and pro-man. When I announced this talk or after it, I ended up updating the mission statement of the company to creating positive media for men and destroying the feminist establishment. To me, these are two different things, right? Positive, negative. But they're two sides of the same coin. I think they're both mutually compatible and mutually important. You could say one is more important than the other, and whatever the fuck. I don't think the specifics of that argument are too important. Like, we can go through it sometime, but whatever. To me, what's important is that they both happen. We're under attack. We can't just say, oh, I'm gonna be all positive and that's all shit's gonna be fine. I don't think it's gonna work like that. Feminists hate men, they hate masculinity. It's millions of women who didn't get a fucking pony from daddy or some shit, and they are raging pissed and doing fucked up shit. They're destroying families, they're destroying men. Whether it's in divorce court or in the sexual marketplace, it's a fucking shit show. Richard Grannon mentioned that to you guys today, how dating has changed just over the past 7 years. It's changed so radically for me that I used to go out and pick up girls in 2009. I'm doing it now in 2018, 2019, and I'm like, is this that fundamentally different, or am I just like having some sort of rose-colored, glasses of the past? No, it has fucking changed. And it's not just technology, it's not just Tinder and Instagram. These are factors. The environment's changed, the culture's changed in the West. Maybe not in Poland, but in America, holy fuck. Women in America are more feminine in 2009, more receptive to, masculine thrusts like that, like a cold approach, like they are here in Poland, and now they're not. There's all this animosity and tension in America, and you see that with the Me Too shit, for example. It's a fucked up shit show, and it's got to stop. So we have to push back, and we have to create positive things for men too. They're both very important, and so I defend both of them. It's fun to bash feminism and say destroy feminism and fuck feminism and all this stuff, but you also have to create positive things too. So they're both important. And so some things we're creating, rather than just talking about it, here's what the fuck happened. This is Hunter fucking Drew. He curses almost as much as I do, which is really enjoyable. So he was the chief patriarch, our keynote speaker, at our recent first ever Patriarch Edition event in Orlando, Florida. It was the first ever Manosphere event, to my knowledge, a conference for fathers. Now, not just fathers, but aspiring fathers if you wanted to be a father someday and build a family. This is positive media for men, but even more specifically, it's positive media for fathers. This is an evolution and a maturation of the Manosphere itself. So this is cool as fuck, and I was really proud to do that. I'm not a dad myself as far as I know, so I'm still happy to do it, fuck yeah. And next year we're doing it again. Tanner Guzzi is the official keynote for it. So it keeps going, and I think there's a lot of momentum to that. This, of course, is an example of the negative, and this conference allows me to do that. I could not go to TEDx or some TED conference and say, feminism is the ultimate hate and supremacist movement. They would fucking wring me out of the room and break my neck or something, who knows, right? You're not allowed to do that at this kind of conferences. You can't do that. Without your own platform, it's really, really hard to do that. It's very few places that would allow this. But my fucking stage, my fucking, rented the hotel room, these cameras, I'm gonna say what the fuck I want. So this is a negative thrust against something that's very negative against us. It's part of combating it, identifying it for what the fuck it is. Feminism is, in my opinion, in my judgment, the ultimate hate supremacist movement. Short of things like genocide and war, it's the most fucked up, largest thing we've seen like this. It's very toxic and negative. It's hatred against hundreds of millions of men and fathers. We've never seen anything like that. And at the same time, they're going to scream at your face that you hate women, which is complete bullshit 99% of the time. In the Manosphere, in my experience, I've seen more than almost anyone. There's a few people who've seen more than me, perhaps, that are older, but I've seen a lot in my 13 years with the conferences and the pickup layers and traveling all around the world. We've done this conference in Australia, Sweden, Poland, London, Florida, Texas, fucking all over the place. The amount of men I've met that genuinely hate women is really low. It's in the single-digit percents, I'd estimate, in the Manosphere. So, fuck yeah. Feminism sucks and it needs to die. It's my favorite punching bag lately. Shifting gears back a little bit to the personal, the Manosphere is a very personal thing for everybody who finds it. There's always a fucking reason you find it. It's either the pain of divorce or the pain of getting rejected by women, or you want to be a better father, whatever the case was. For a lot of you, it will be a hero's journey. A lot of our speakers, it's been like that. I would say Socrates, for example, is a cycle, or A.J. Cortez was talking about this too. It's a cycle that you're using this community for. I don't think everyone will do that, but a lot of guys stay in it for a long time, more than 6 months or a year or 2 years. It'll function like this for you. More specifically, though, for all men, I think it'll function as a rite of passage, and that's one of the methods that it's making the West more masculine and making men more masculine. Krauser mentioned this too, so it's not like I went from like zero to hero, but baseline, you could call it that, I guess. So in high school, on the far left, absolutely sucked with girls. It was like horrifying. I really liked them, and they wanted nothing to do with me, so that sucked. I was like, I want to have sex with them. They don't want that. That needs to change. Finding the pickup community helped that. In college, I got a little better. I learned how to go and pick up girls. So I understood pickup, and then eventually I realized I only understood pickup and I did not understand women. I ended up accidentally marrying a hooker in Vegas, which is hysterical. Also traumatic and all that shit, right? But for me, it's been a rite of passage in becoming a man. Whether it's being in high school and feeling the pain of these things, wanting to improve, going out and doing 6,000 cold approaches, like a robot sometimes, but fuck it, whatever. I wanted to socialize, I wanted to meet women, I wanted to make it happen, I wanted to learn, and I fucking did that. That was my specific rite of passage in my journey. Other guys might be different. Fixing a marriage, for example, will be a lot different than that in terms of mechanics, but fundamentally, it's a rite of passage. If you're some beta bitch in your marriage and you want to fix it, that's going to be a fucking journey for you. It's not going to tickle, it's going to sting, but you can get the job done. For me, this is what I did, and I'm still going through it at 30 now. I want to shift gears again here. And get into the Manosphere in terms of long-term survival. This is a quote that was sent to me by a YouTuber who might speak eventually at the convention, but he hasn't spoken yet, but a big YouTuber. I won't say his name. A nation can survive its fools and even the ambitious, but it cannot survive treason from within. An enemy at the gates is less formidable, for he is known and he carries his banners openly. But the traitor moves among those within the gates freely. His sly whispers rustling through all the alleys, heard in the valley halls of government itself. For the traitor appears not traitor, he speaks in the accents familiar to his victims, and he wears their face in their garments, and he appeals to the baseness that lies deep in the hearts of all men. He rots the soul of a nation, he works secretly and unknown in the night to undermine the pillars of a city. He infects the body politic so that it can no longer resist. A murderer is less to be feared. Cicero, 42 BC. This is powerful. When this is sent to me, the recent shit went down in the Manosphere, I didn't really think of it in these terms yet, and I was like, holy fuck, this guy's right. Treason and treachery from within the Manosphere is extremely dangerous. Rollo Tomassi stood on this stage in 2018 and said, "The greatest enemy for the manosphere will come from within in the future." I fully agree with that statement. So what to watch for in the manosphere over time? Because it's still aging, right? It's 25-something years old. It's going to keep going. If the world doesn't fall apart, it's going to be 35, 45, 55 years old eventually. So some things to watch for men in this space, anybody. Anyone in public that has their face and their reputation known by name, they need to live by example, for better and for worse, right? I've always lived by example, and that's what I was known for. Way back in the pickup days, I would post photos and lay reports and field reports of these things. I lived by example. Men knew me in the community in Florida, good for better and for worse. It's kind of a huge, asshole to a lot of them. They would criticize me, but like, hey, go fuck yourself. Socrates, remember these days, it's pretty fucking funny. But I've always lived by example. When I found out, I woke up one day and realized I'd married a prostitute, I was like, holy fuck, that just happened. And I didn't wait long to give a speech on it. Like, yeah, this is an example of my life. It's a fucking shit show. I fucked up. I married a hooker. Oops. Nevertheless, I'm always one to live by my own example for better and for worse. And everyone should is going to be out in the open. If they're fully anonymous, that's different. They have to cross that boundary. The minute they do, they need to live by it for better and for worse. And there's no reason good enough to hide the example of your life. If you're going to be out in the open, this movement's too fucking serious. The war on men is too serious. You need to own your shit. You need to live it. You need to walk your talk, period. So no half-pregnant bullshit. Any kind of money doublespeak, people say that they're not in it for the money and they're accepting money. Watch these kind of things. This is how good liars lie. Any kind of manosphere targeted virtue signaling, so virtue signaling specific to the manosphere itself, be very suspicious of this. No one is above a red pill examination, including me, including the speakers, including your friends, including attendees of this event. Never be afraid of looking for the truth. Never be afraid of facing reality, ever. And not being with the enemy, not identifying with the feminist, and being in that camp of SJW douchebaggery, that doesn't automatically make you an ally. Saying you want to help men doesn't automatically mean that person wants to help men. All you know is that's what they said. You need to watch that shit. 95% of the time, it's going to be fun, but sometimes it's not. Richard Grennan and any good psychologist will tell you personality disorders are real. Psychopaths are real. Sociopaths are real. Narcissists are real. And it's not just people ranting in public being arrogant. The real dangerous ones are the traitors that hide and they're covert. They're secret. They're fucking dangerous. This is an interesting concept I came up with just a few weeks ago, talking with DDJ from the RedMed group, if you guys know that guy. He's on YouTube at Miss Andrew today. Along with some other speakers at this event, this is me, by the way, on the left in 2007 at the first convention in Orlando, Florida. That is the only crowd shot we have of the first convention, July 2007, in Orlando, Florida at the Under 21 convention. I realized that I was among the first generation of men who found the manosphere at a really young age, and I grew up with it, period. From age 17 to now 30, it's been in my life almost every single day. It's absolutely changed the course of my life for the better in massive and pretty obvious ways at this point, given the fucking lights and cameras, right? It's my entire life, top to bottom for the most part. My best friends, love, pick up all these women, business, all the shit, it is my life. But there's a lot of men, there's thousands of men that found at a young age, and they're not coming of age. I call them sons of the manosphere. They found at a young age, it helped them, and in some degree, they stuck with it. They watch it, they pay attention. Maybe they come back, maybe they get married and they leave, and they come back because something happened, right? Or whatever the case may be. Our photographer for this event in America, the one we used in Florida, he's 21 years old. He found 21 Studios in not the RedMed group, but the Manosphere at 11 years old. He's now 21, photographing our event. He grew up watching Manosphere content from 11 years old. So what we're seeing, which is when I heard this, I was like, holy fuck, that's nuts. Regardless, what we're seeing, I think, for the first time ever is a compound effect. I think this is one of the ways feminism won. The feminism we see today didn't just spring up out of nowhere. It compounded after generation and generation and generation of feminism. It started way back in the 1800s and then really picked up in the 1900s with the 19th Amendment. We're seeing that now with the Manosphere. It's getting older. The internet is the new factor for this because it speeds things up. Nevertheless, we're seeing generations go by. I'm a millennial. That guy, a photographer, is a Gen Z guy. It's going to continue beyond that in the 2020s and 2030s. So we're now seeing for the first time ever multiple generations of men that are now going to go on and have sons. and have little brothers and cousins that find this stuff and they grow up with it. And it's compounding. I think it's a very good thing. That's why it needs to survive. This is a quote from Ed Lattimore when he spoke at the 2018 convention in Orlando, Florida. He said, "This may be the first time in my life," speaking on his experience at the event, "that I felt like I was around my tribe. I'm sure you guys can relate." And he's speaking specifically to the conference and his experience at it. But this quote really stuck with me because I was like, I wonder if he's being very specific about what he means. But for me, I was looking at it at a much deeper, more fundamental level. He's thinking about the 200 guys that attend the conference or whatever. But I started to think this year a lot more broadly. I started realizing the Manosphere is really my whole fucking life. It's not just a business for me, it's a personal thing too. This is a tribe for me, it's a home, is what I'm starting to realize. And that's why I fought so hard this year for it. This is a meme, one of our, that got made. I had a real serious choice to make this year that's been a very unpopular stance to take, and it nearly cost me my life's work. And I had to nut the fuck up and make a decision on that recently. And I did, and we're here now, and we won. But I did that because I realized that the Manosphere is my home, like America is my home. I'm a patriot of my country, and I'm a patriot of this community. And I think I'm one of the first to recognize it like that, because I didn't even think of it that way, even like a year or two ago. It would have been a little bit alien to me at the time. But Ed's quote about the tribe and that experience of being at the event really stuck home with me for looking at the Manosphere in totality. I don't know everybody. I've met maybe 2,000 guys or something in the Manosphere throughout my lifetime, which is a lot. There's millions I'll never meet. Maybe I'll talk to them on the internet, maybe not. But this community is my home. And I make no apology for that, and it's been really eye-opening to realize that and put my entire life on the line, everything I've ever built, to fight for it and for what I believe in, what I believe is right, including people think it's the wrong thing to do. That's my talk. That's the Manosphere. I appreciate you guys coming to the conference. It's been a hell of a couple days, couple weeks, couple months building it, putting it together. You guys make it happen along with me by putting your ass in that seat, investing in your own life, and taking care of business. Thank you. I have some time for questions if you guys have them. Okay. All right, Ed's in the back.
Yeah, I know I'm a speaker. I'm not supposed to ask questions, whatever. But my question is, when you said something up there that stuck with me, that you had the decision to make, and it didn't sound like it was easy. And,
Yeah.
I guess I never really thought about it, but I'm really curious about like what your thought process was when all of that was going down and you had to decide how to respond to the things that were going down. I don't want to talk about them. Everyone who's watching know, but I'm real curious about what made you decide, because you could have just as easily looked at it, because I've heard a few other opinions and looked at it and went, okay, from a financial perspective, this is almost certainly a better choice to not do anything about it. I want to know what made you decide and how you looked at everything.
It was so I understand what you're asking. I think I know how to answer it without getting into too much drama bullshit. When I found out that stuff about Rollo, the hard evidence, I knew about it beforehand, but I was like, maybe I'm wrong. 99% certain, 1% hopefully wrong. And then I found out I wasn't. I was like, oh fuck, this is like really serious. So I had a choice. I could wait till after Poland to do that, or after Orlando, or I could do it before Poland immediately and strike. My gut said strike. And what made my gut say that is that I realized this is my home. These are my friends and these are my family. I don't really have any family left at this point. I have my sister, and that's about it. The rest of my family, it's a fucking absolute disaster. These men are beyond my brothers. They're real family to me, like blood basically. I'd take a bullet for them in a heartbeat. I think the same is true in reverse in many cases. So I also saw, though, specific to your question, though, I had an easy route to wait with the money and to not fight, $50,000 in chargebacks and all this crazy bullshit going on, which I've never had to deal with before in the business, right? Way unusual for us. So I could do the easy route and wait, or I could do the hard route and go through some fucking pain. And in pain, there's growth. That's exactly what the fuck just happened. So I'm feeling it. I had to man the fuck up, make a tough choice. I made the harder choice, which I thought would be more productive for my life long term and the business and the community. And I did that, and I've taken a lot of heat for it, more than I ever have in my life. But I think that's a very good thing, and it's a sign that there's value in it and there's a future in it. And it was the right call, in spite of all the bullshit and all this shit going on. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Anthony. Just curious about, again, to follow up on what Ed said. So, I mean, the entire incident went down in Orlando in 2018. Yep. And just wondering, because, you know, Rollo was at the Patriarch version.
That's right.
And so why did it take 7 months for, you know, the entire investigation and all that to come through and for you to make that final decision? I mean, if it was that serious, why didn't it occur earlier?
Sure. Well, yeah, go ahead. No problem. So like I mentioned with Ed, I didn't have hard evidence until late May of 2019, recently, after the Patriarch event. So I knew about this beforehand. I was pretty certain I was right, but it was such a big deal that I couldn't act on it without hard evidence. I got that like May, I could check like May 20th or something. So we dropped it on June 2nd. We booted Rollo out, and that was very quick after I figured out what the fuck actually happened, and I was certain about it, beyond any shadow of a doubt. So up until that time, I knew I could be wrong. And I knew without on top of that too, I'll be real with you, man. I knew that without hard evidence, that's a battle I'd probably lose. This shit was serious. Rollo was a big player in this field. He was, the self-proclaimed godfather and shit. He had a lot of pull, a lot of power, a lot of relationships. Even with that, it's been a tough battle. It's been the fight of my life. It's been a fight to the death.
So I'm just curious, because this has been on my mind even before Patriarch in Orlando, but in the long term, is the goal like political or judicial aspirations are changed? Like, for example, we can talk about how the laws are basically skewed against us, right? And we basically have a choice, right? We could either just say, okay, the laws are fucked, and we might as well just act around these laws so we don't get fucked, or are we going to change these laws? Yeah. So is that a goal? Is that something on your mind? I'm just curious what you think about that.
My best answer would be referring to DDJ on this. He commented recently in the Red Man group about this, and he pointed out that feminists, they do change laws, and they're fucking really good at it. They've been doing it for a long time. So eventually there has to be political pushback. I don't think that should dominate the manosphere or the focus, but it's delusional to think that you can help men and support men and just ignore that shit, or just hope it works itself out. There is political change going on in America, but it's not specific to men and masculinity so much. I think Trump winning, I'm a huge Trump fan, obviously. But this is me kind of flirting with politics. And I think that's what the manosphere has to do in a useful, focused, and targeted way to help men. I know in America right now, I think in like Alabama or something, for example, they're trying to criminalize much more heavily false rape accusations and stuff like that, which is excellent. That needs to happen. But the legal stuff's gonna take a long time. Government and laws take time to change. And I do want to have some of it in the manosphere, though, and I think it's important. I think it's as relevant as anything else. Politics and laws are as relevant as fatherhood, as masculinity, as dating, as sex, as marriage, and all these things. And so you can't elevate it to the top, but you can't just pretend it's like not a fucking issue and hope the men's rights guys just figure it out and shit. They don't. Those guys are great. I love what they're doing to the extent they succeed, but they don't understand women, and I think they fundamentally don't understand women. So they're never going to succeed in what they're doing. That's why the manosphere has to keep coming together and working together in ways that are useful without compromising, losing important values. The pickup artists having female dating coaches, for example, that's just like super stupid. You shouldn't do that. Women have no idea how to be a man, and they never will. Directly, anyway, firsthand.
Anthony, so the split was a bit traumatic for the manosphere. My question to you is, why was the conduct on the internet so attacking towards Rollo? Because the split was done, and just the behavior was a bit off.
Yeah, it was over the top, That was on purpose.
If you can comment on that.
Sure. So I can't comment completely, but I can comment somewhat on it. So when I get back to America, there's going to be some major events that are going to happen that you guys haven't seen yet. And so that behavior was strategic and on purpose. People saw me tweeting all this stuff, like cursing and stuff. This was on purpose. People think I'm just like losing my shit. No, this is definitely on purpose. Kind of like Trump does on Twitter. He pops off, does all this wild ass shit, and people are like, oh, he's unhinged and da da da. It's maybe sometimes, but I don't think so. He's doing this on purpose with a purpose. He's doing it on purpose with a future plan of action in mind. And that's what I've been doing. As you guys know, meeting me at the event, I'm not some unhinged lunatic. I'm pretty focused and calm and driven. But on the internet, I'll play something else sometimes if I think it's to my benefit and the benefit of my goals and my values and what I want to do. So I understand your question, totally get how it's confusing and like, what the fuck is this guy saying? But it got your attention, didn't it?
give it up for Anthony Dream Johnson.
Thanks, man. All right.